Hello, everyone. Maayang adlaw. Welcome back to Pilipinx in Wellness. In our last episode, we spoke with Paula Diocampo, children's book author of B, about Pilipinx identity in children's books, just in time for the holidays. We're grateful to Paula, who talked to us through the vision and purpose of her book, the messages young Filipinas may have heard during their childhood, and how to break through the impact of those messages. Our opening and closing track for season 2 is Help Me by Richie. For this month's episode, we are starting 2023 with warm thoughts and a subject that will literally warm you from the inside out. Ina Botanicals and Tea with Bernadette Aguirre. I'm Cheryl Sampson Ramirez. My preferred pronouns are she, her, sha. I'm ethnically Visayan and Chinese, currently streaming from the traditional territories and still living Chumash, Tongva, and Kich people, colonially known as Los Angeles. Philippine X in Wellness's vision is to support the wellness of the Philippine X community through resource sharing, podcast streams, and partnerships with professionals and organizations in order to live healthier, happier, and more fulfilling lives. If you're not following us already, please feel free to follow us at Philippine X in Wellness with a P ending with a X in Wellness on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and on Twitter via the handle at PhilippineX, the letter N, the word well, followed by the letters N and S. We honor the safe space by asking everyone to speak and listen respectfully from your heart throughout our time together. This pre recorded session can be accessed through our Philippine X and Wellness YouTube channel and on Apple Podcasts. As always, we'll be sure to answer any questions that you've sent us via our Instagram stories within our episodes. Please keep in mind that anything that is discussed is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not meant to be medical advice. Always consult with your healthcare practitioner for your particular condition, especially before starting any exercise or new health program. Philippine X in Wellness was formed to provide a dialogue around topics that affect the wellness of our community. We're here to also highlight Philippine X individuals and organizations that are actively doing wellness work. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Bernadette Aguirre. As a lifelong city dweller, Bernadette grew up eating herbs and vegetables growing in a modest garden that was mainly tended by her mom. Both of her parents were raised on farms in the Philippines amidst hovering mango trees, moringa bushes, and in between the moist air where paddies lay. It's no wonder that plants' nourishing powers have always found a home in her medicine cabinet or boiling on her stove. When Bernadette started her career in New York City, her morning started each day with a paper cup and a tea bag of Earl Grey from the local bodega. Bernadette has turned to tea and herbs not only for the tea parties and delicious blends, but also for their holistic health benefits. Her approach as an herbal practitioner is centered around energetic herbalism, which matches the attributes and spirits of herbs to the state of a person's mind and body. What a poetic bio to welcome you in with, Bernadette. We would like to welcome to Philippine X in Wellness for the first time, Bernadette Aguirre. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Cheryl. Thank you so much for having me. I really am so honored to be with you.
Yeah, we are as well. I was stumbling over your bio because whenever I see herbs, I keep wanting to pronounce it with the H and say herbs.
Oh, the
So
British way, yeah.
yeah. I had a friend that said that teased me and said, "There's an H in front of the word. It's herb." So yeah, but for this podcast, I'll take out the H. So yeah. Let's get into it, Bern. All right. So something that we always start off with in our episodes is asking our guests, where is your family from in the Philippines? through your parents' lineages, and where are you currently streaming from in case that's different from where you're residing?
Sure. So, my dad is from Batangas, which is just a few hours outside of Manila in the barangay of Pook Banal. And my mom is from the Visayas also, and that's how you and I know each other. Just that she's from Visayas, Mangusaw, Capiz. And my parents met here in San Francisco, and I'm streaming from Oloni, also known as San Francisco.
Thank you. That you're like half my husband, half me, because my husband's dad is also from Batangas. So all I could say from there is ala eh. All right. Warm our insides, Bern, with what you're currently brewing or drinking at the moment. I saw you take a sip as you were talking about where your family's from. So, what's getting you through these winter San Francisco days?
Yeah, well, the weather here in San Francisco, can never really tell. I mean, it's always pretty temperate, but I am drinking my blend called Above the Fog, and I live out in the outer Sunset, which is like right near the beach, which has some malunggay, takip kobol, which are basically moringa and gotu kola, peppermint, sage, and lemongrass. So that's what I'm drinking to warm me up and to get me focused for our talk.
That sounds so yummy. I'm growing lemongrass too on my porch from my mom. So I love hearing the blend of herbs that you have from the Philippines. We know that lemongrass is native to the Philippines. We heard about that from our episode with Angela Angel, and Gotu Cola was also mentioned, and malunggay. So it's really cool to hear you infusing those native plants also in your blends.
Yeah.
In your bio, I wanted to say you talked about drinking Earl Grey from the local bodega during your chapter as a professional in New York. Tell us more about your origin story from the local bodega to tea parties. Of course, it's not the
Um,
Boston Tea Party that we're talking about, but expanding your business. What events or series of events took place for you to pursue a deeper relationship with tea?
Yeah, I think as a professional and getting up in the morning, everyone has their preferred type of caffeine pick me up, and mine was really tea. So before I got in the lobby, I worked in New York doing marketing, just a few blocks away from Times Square, so it's super busy. And I would again get my Earl Grey tea with a little bit of cream from Bodega, and then of course being with all these people, I got sick a lot. And the good thing was I have a friend who was going through acupuncture school and herbal medicine, and I was lucky enough to be asked, one of her guinea pigs, I guess. And so I would go to her clinics, and that's uh, when I really started learning about just receiving holistic care, and really incorporating Chinese herbs for the most part, when I was seeing my friend. And then throughout, um, my the 20s until now, I pretty much just have always studied herbs and incorporated into like my everyday cooking, and really just self learning about herbs. And I started my business a few years ago. Well, actually, it was conceived a few years ago, and I really didn't think to start it until really the I had the time after the pandemic hit, and basically, I was going to herbal school. I went. I finished a program through the Herbal Academy and Versus School of Medicine, and I have a background, like I said, in marketing and in consumer packaged goods. So, I got pregnant, ended up thinking about like, there's some great teas out there and some great blends, but nothing of like the quality or the branding that I really attached to or spoke to me. So that's where it kind of like came um, into my mind of like, hey, well, I have this background, I have this herbal knowledge. I think I could just try to do it myself and see how I can develop and grow it. And that's really, in the last couple of years, I've slowly just started to just test different blends, test branding, and just try to build up Botanicals.
Yeah, it's interesting that you would start your mornings with tea, right? Because I feel like a lot of Americans are coffee drinkers. And I'm curious also to know, since you have a blend with herbs that are also from the Philippines, did you grow up culturally drinking tea in the morning, like too, at home, or did you in your journey, like, through tea, have you found that there's also a presence of tea in our culture? Tea drinking?
I would say tea as a tea leaf and the plant itself, Camellia sinensis, which is the Latin name for tea, not so much because you don't really find it so much in the Philippines. But definitely the herbs, moringa, like I said, here at least, growing up, that's definitely a huge part of my everyday cooking and brewing. And I grew up with my grandparents living close by in San Francisco, so they would always be like brewing malunggay, and just like I would come over there like after school and see like my grandparents or my aunties just sitting at the table just picking malunggay leaves, like taking forever,
Yeah,
and that so
are
that is
very
definitely yeah, so that's definitely something that I've grown up with, and then once moringa started, trending in the past few years, we're like, oh yeah, moringa, moringa. It's like, I'm like, I don't even know what moringa is. Oh, malunggay. Okay, I know what you're talking about. Yes, I've been. That's it's like been here forever. So it's not a trend. It's just the usual.
How did you come up with the name Ina Botanicals, and tea? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I wanted something that was simple and uh, really just reflective of what um, what I wanted to associate with. So Ina, as you know, means or is ina in Tagalog, which is mother. And then Ina is also just a derivation of like female names like Christina, Nina, Josephina. So this brand really just tries to embody like a female persona and motherly persona. So that's where I came up with it.
Alright, you mentioned, Bernadette, your schooling. I believe you said that you went to the Verse School of Herbal Medicine and the Herbal Academy. I know that there's so many different herbal schools out there, and classes and academies, that you can study under and or with. Why did you decide particularly, with on these 2 schools?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of great programs out there. And, I think the ones I chose specifically, well, the Herbal Academy is kind of at your own pace and online primarily. They have a great forum on Facebook. And, given like my schedule with trying to build a business, having a family. I found that program was really great. And then I also took some courses through the Verse School of Herbal Medicine, which is also based here in San Francisco. So it's primarily online and it's live. There's a small cohort of other herbalists, and they also have a store, an apothecary here that's tied to the Scarlet Sage apothecary. So they also hold classes over there. So it's great where again there's that comfort of taking classes from your home, but also being able to have some like hands-on in real life courses as well.
Got it. And do you graduate with or complete the program with a certification or a degree? How does that work?
So it's more like a certificate program that you get from the school, and then you can you can there's what's called an American Herbalist Association, or American Herbalist Guild, and there's like requirements for you to get um, kind of registered or recognition from that governing body, but that's not necessary. But yeah, the schools generally provide certificates for completion of the programs.
Got it. I wanted to also ask you about, I guess, tea wasn't originally your first career out of college, correct?
No.
So how did you make your way or through, from your like past career into the tea business?
Yeah, I would say that, my background in consumer packaged goods, I started off doing marketing for New York City. Then I would also work with a lot of high profile brands in CPG, like Snapple and Coke brands, or like Red Bull and stuff like that. So um, I was able to at least have the visibility from a marketing perspective and branding perspective, having worked, with those brands. And then I ended up, like later on in my career, working as a marketing director for a beverage company, called Purity Organic, and they basically were doing beverages like, you know juices, like, super juices like kale juices and turmeric, like cold turmeric pressed juices. And so during that time, that's when I really started digging also into ingredients and product development. And so that's, I also got a lot of like operational experience from that position. So it was just kind of like everything going full circle, with all the different brands that I've worked with, and like what I'm really interested in, and I'm just interested in general, like holistic health.
Got it. And I wanted to also ask you because your career is definitely a non-traditional career that's as it's perceived amongst our elders and like our parents. What was their reaction or response when you told them that you were going to start a tea company?
I would say, it's funny because I have my my parents definitely helped me. And my mom, she's super business oriented and savvy. So I would say for her, she's like, great. How do I help you? Or like, what do you need? And she's like always slanging tea when she sees her friends, slang like slanging tea from like, oh, my friends really liked your nightcap tea, and so for my mom, I think she totally gets it. She's like, what do you need to do to make this work and stuff. My dad, he's supportive. He's definitely helping me a lot in terms of even just like, it's family business. He's like helping me package teas and like folding boxes, and so he kind of is just like, why are you doing this again? It's a lot of work for not so much return. I'm like, it's all right, Dad. It's all right, Dad. Just don't worry. It's not only about that. It's like it'll come. So yeah.
That's cool that your mom was supportive. I loved how you said she was slanging tea. I could hear. I just got this visual of her talking to her friends and like saying, "I got a 20 ounce in my my purse."
Yeah, totally. She's like, I got some chamomile tea for you. Do you have the tea, tea tools? Yeah.
Are your grandkids stressing you out? I got some of this blend that will help alleviate all of that.
Right.
That was hilarious. I mean, yeah, I guess she is in a sense slinging herb, right?
Yeah, she's all about it. Like I said, she's always about like what small business can we do or can you do or so she's all
Oh,
fine. Yeah.
that's so cute. Yeah.
It's probably her like Messiah and like sorry store like background or something.
Yeah. Oh, that's helpful, right? To have that there and to especially to have your parents on board with a non-traditional career. We normally hear parents saying they want us to be doctors or nurses or lawyers, but it's really cool that you have that parental support backing you with this business.
Yeah, definitely feel really lucky.
Yeah, well, sweet. All this great information that you shared about your foundation, and we're already at the first half of our segment. Thank you all for joining us for season 2 of Philippine X in Wellness as we open 2023. We're talking with founder and clinical herbalist Bernadette Aguirre about her company, Ina Botanicals and Tea. Please stay tuned. Feel free to take a quick stretch, refill your water or tea. We'll be right back after this quick break.
We all dancing on the edge of the planet every day. No matter where you are or where you're going, you are a soul inside that clay. No matter what they say, I see you.
Welcome back to Philippine X in Wellness. You were just listening to the first part of It Is Within by Low Leaf off of her 2016 album Palm Psalms, A Light to Resolve All Darkness. You can help support Low Leaf by following her on Instagram at lowleaf, all one word. She's a multi-instrumentalist artist and producer based in Los Angeles. You can also find her music on Bandcamp, Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Music. Easier access is through her link tree located in her Instagram bio. Shout out to our Philippine X musicians out there always laying down the tracks. Returning from our break, we've been talking with Bernadette Aguirre about her company, Ina Botanicals and Tea, right in time before the Lunar New Year. So, Bernadette, tell us about your herbs. Do you forage for them? Do you plant them in your city garden? Or do you source them from various places?
Yeah, so primarily because I use just a range of different herbs that need different climates and soils, I work with different suppliers um, here domestically. So in from Washington State, Oregon, Vermont is where I get a lot of the herbs, and then teas. I get from India and China, and then and some also from Egypt. So it really ranges, but most of them come domestically, and they're all organic.
Which ones do you get overseas that you can't get here in the US?
Uh, well, I mean, you can get a lot of them over here, but the ones that I get, like I said, is the tea, so Camellia sinensis. And then sometimes I'll get some chamomile from Egypt. And I think it's just again, like all year round, the climates are just different, and what they need. So, yeah.
And how do you establish these connections with people overseas or even in Vermont and other states? Is it easy to establish these connections, or what is your way of honing in on your business practices and maintaining these relationships?
Yeah, for the most part, the ones overseas, they do have connections here in the U.S. So I do have like a bird that I work with in that's based out in like Sacramento area, that works with um, the farms from those different countries. So it's just a matter of, you know, taking a look at what the products are that they have, and really just aligning them with, like, getting their ingredients, testing them out, um, and just making sure that with each batch there's consistency, because someone may be producing lavender, for example, and lavender in Washington may be completely different lavender in like the farms that we're getting in Oregon. But again, depending on like demand, supply and demand, just making sure that there's still some consistency with the different varietals of the plants that I'm getting.
And even when it comes to using organic sources, I imagine that you also have a time frame in when you can, um, well, because they're going to eventually expire, right? So when you can sell them.
Yeah, generally speaking, the dried herbs have a pretty good shelf life and I like to say like a year, even though they can go longer than that. But I would say a year to ensure that they have, like they're the most potent and the most um, you know, flavorful, because like once they get picked, it starts that whole oxidation process. But I'd say at least a year is like a good time frame, to make sure that your teas and herbs are good.
Nice. And tell us about your blends, Bern. So I was looking at your website, and I love the names that you came up with. I thought they were really cute. Tell us more about the blends that you sell.
Yeah, so when I came up with the names, I'm always trying to come up with the names that provide like a hint of the actions or support that they can provide to you, or like align it with like a part of your day. So, for example, like I mentioned earlier today, Above the Fog, which has the moringa, peppermint, lemongrass, and that's all about like trying to help with um, uh, giving you focus. Gotu kola, Takip Kobol, we were talking about, has an affinity to like brain cognition, and it's also an adaptogen. So that means that it can help with like over time, just um, easing like stress, or just helping you manage stress a little bit better. And then I do have a bundle called um, the Daily Steep, and there are uh, three products, which is the first one is 90 agenda. So this is like meant to like be the first cup that you have in the morning, and that has caffeine with the tea, and it also has yerba mate, which is a caffeinated herb. And then the second drink for like the middle of your day, I have the afternoon reset, and that includes roasted dandelion root, um, coriander, fennel, hibiscus. That's supposed to be really great for digestion. It's supposed to be like a very gentle detox, to help, give you a little bit of more energy in the middle of the day without necessarily giving you that like caffeine hit. And Yeah, just a nice little refresher. And then, of course, to end your day, you want to be able to relax. So I have the nightcap blend, and that is with chamomile, spearmint, linden flower. So that one is really just supposed to help you kind of unwind, or you know, help you at least sleep a little bit better. So again, trying to think about the different functionalities that I'm going for, and the different parts of your day, and that's how I kind of come up with the blends and the names.
I love afternoon reset. Does that also help with lunch food comas?
It could definitely help in terms of, um, I guess, promoting and encouraging like your digestive juices to start flowing, to get your system moving, to kind of get it all flowing. Yeah, so I would say that it could definitely help in terms of, clearing you out for that food coma.
Got it. I love your choice of words for what you're trying to explain.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, gently, like, I'm not saying like you're gonna, yeah,
It's
it's like
not
a
if
nice,
you're constipated, right?
no, no, no.
Yeah.
I mean, it could help in the long term, but yeah, yeah.
Well, we're also in the middle of like cold, flu, and COVID season, right? A lot of respiratory viruses happening, a lot of influenza, continuation of COVID. Are there specific teas that you're developing to aid the immune system against these types of viruses that are circulating?
I specifically for that, I would actually refer people to the nightcap, because chamomile, already is really great, and this is like from a like helping you kind of, you know stave off some of the infections. But it's chamomile is like a great anti-inflammatory. It's also antimicrobial. So, and it has some spearmint in there. And then also the above the fog is also great, because again, it has like peppermint, um, which is great for like your lungs, and breathing. And then moringa, which is also really good for, it's really high in vitamins and minerals. And then, it's also another great anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. There are some other herbs that I have in development right now that is actually going to be more focused on women's health. So definitely stay tuned, in the next coming weeks. That's what I've been developing shortly.
That's so awesome. Any teas that will take away migraines? That's like a recent one for me.
Yeah, yeah. It's supposed to like just tie in with like a better cycle, no matter where you are in terms of your um your phases.
Yeah. I want to learn more about the process from herb to bag. Um, I know that when we were preparing for this episode initially, you had shared that you had different mason jars in your house, and I'm curious to know what is like your process in producing the tea, and how do you determine like your different blends that you come up with?
Yeah, because I already have kind of like some knowledge about, specific herbs, and then I'm also still constantly learning about other herbs. I'm constantly tasting. So I'm, constantly tasting and constantly just studying which herbs there are, and then kind of coming up with like a general structure, um, of what I want, like, for example, the flavor palette, to be. So and also like how it can help just, someone, supporting them in their health. But it starts with, what's the lead herb that's really going to be like the driver of the flavor, and then kind of working around that, with other supporting herbs, other ones that, um, can kind of, um, enhance and complement the other herbs. So, like I said, I'm constantly testing. When I kind of narrow it down to about five or four herbs that I want to blend together, then it's a matter of like blending like 10 different iterations of like what the ratios are of each of those herbs, and then having, other people, taste them as well and get their take on it. So once that's all done, then I have to go back and try to figure out, okay, well, from a packaging perspective, like, you know, um, how much is it going to weigh, based off of the number of you know, servings that I want, and then really take it from there. I have a kitchen, commercial kitchen that I work out of, and take my dad with me to just start getting all the supplies, and we just start packaging, and yeah, just get all the inventory up and running. So that's a high level overview, I guess.
That's a cool way to also, like, have a bonding experience with your dad by having him there with you through
Yeah.
the production process.
Yeah, he's a trooper. I mean, it's like you're standing there for like 5 hours, with like barely any sit breaks, because it's like I'm paying by the hour. So I'm like, we gotta produce like, like at least like 50, 50 like every half hour, like 100 an hour,
He's probably asking you for a winter bonus for for
Exactly. Yeah. He gets I'll give him some extra gas money, I guess.
Is your commercial kitchen also, in San Francisco, or
Yeah, it's in Treasure Island. So
okay,
it's like from where I'm at, yeah, it's not too far.
that's cool. I wanted to now, I think, ask you, we were talking about incorporating herbs, from our culture earlier on in the episode about lemongrass, tanglad, about gotu kola, and I don't remember the Tagalog term for that, but also malunggay. Have you looked into additional herbs within our culture to like produce your teas that are unique to our culture and also our health needs? We have like high levels, right, of cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes, you name it, cancer is also really common. Wondering if you've looked into, your herbs in that from that framework.
Yeah, I'd say that um, other herbs that we use a lot of too in the Philippines are zea mays, which is the Latin name for corn silk, which I don't know the Tagalog name for it. But that's also really good, especially from like a kidney, um, kidney and like liver support. So looking into those types of things, I mean, I know that for my mom, she um, has it frozen in her freezer, because you know as she was going through menopause, that was one of the herbs that she kind of had, um,
Oh, cool.
just to help with like incontinence and stuff, or like nocturia or something, so and again, like it has an affinity for the urinary system. And
Yeah.
then guava leaves are also like one that I've been trying to
Guayaba.
look into and just figure out like how to get some like get like mass supply of that as well. So though, yeah, there are definitely a couple like down the pike. And then um, yeah, I would say those two are probably the ones that I've been taking a closer look at.
Now, corn silk, are those the threads in the like within the corn husk, or within the cob?
Yeah, yeah. So it's literally like just the when you like peel the corn, it's the outer layer of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, I had no idea that had, well, medicinal properties, but I'm not surprised now that you
No,
talk about
right?
it. Yeah, and guava leaves, we'll have to connect you with Herbalaria down here, because I know
Yeah,
Lindsay
I
said
follow her. I like her stuff. Yeah. I think she
yeah,
grows hers, like she grows
yeah,
hers on her property, I think, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so we'll have to make sure that we make that connection happen
Yeah.
after the episode. Alright. What else would I want to ask you about tea, Brenda, to really pick your brain? I actually, since it is a wellness podcast, I'm curious to know, um, there was a rise in people looking for alternative medicine, especially during the pandemic, and I'm curious to know, What do like your clients normally go to you for when they're seeking tea? What types of conditions do they have? And tell us about your assessment process. Let's talk about the clinical herbalist part of your work and what that entails.
Yeah, I would say that it's pretty comprehensive. I go through, let's see, an intake process that goes really deep. So it starts off with sending a client a form that goes into their history. It's almost similar to like what you would expect filling out at a doctor's office, but like multiply that by like two or three. And then we'll talk about like diet, talk about like your sleep, and then once we get into a session, it's more of like a discovery session where we'll have a conversation for about an hour and a half or two. And I'll have an idea of the things and the issues that you're wanting to address. But I would say that when it comes to holistic health, this is something that we've been um, uh, has kind of had us survive for thousands of years is plant medicine. So it just complementing it with Western medicine practices, I think, is like the most ideal way of really tying together holistic health. So with my intake process, we'll go into kind of like, well, what did you eat for the last few days? Where did you grow up? How did you grow up? Did you, so it's not only like, okay, well, you want to address, for example, your acne, let's say, but, I want to talk about more of like your, and I want to talk about like, how does that tie into like your hormones? How does that tie into like the environment that you're living in right now? Like how much stress are you undergoing? So I would say that it's pretty comprehensive, compared to like if you were to go to a doctor, they would just look at your symptoms and then maybe try to give you like a quick assessment and give you like some medication for it. Whereas for herbalists, it's more a matter of like trying to dig into like what the root causes are and really treating your body like it's a garden. It's like it's overall maintenance of everything and that's going on. Like it's all connected, and so that's kind of the approach. And then finding herbs that would best balance you out. So um, when we look at like herbal and Western herbalism, for example, we look at things and in terms of like hot, cold, loose or flaccid, tense, and damp and dry. So it's really similar to like Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine, and then finding the herbs that would complement that that dampness that you're probably having in your body. Like if you say that like you're kind of cold and you're like damp, like you feel like bloated or like really like you know, moist or something, like what herbs can kind of help like dry you up or like warm you up as well, um, to help kind of like deal with your underlying issues. And I would say for the most part, a lot of people that I've spoken to, like 70% of them actually have a lot of depression and anxiety. So, and that could be caused by a lot of things, not only from like an environmental perspective, but even just from a physiological, like a lot of like inflammation in your body that can be caused by whatever foods that we eat or other stressors and things can cause, some neurological like imbalances to help to make you feel like you're depressed or anxious.
Wow, that's pretty deep. I mean, just even looking at it from a digestive standpoint, we know that definitely like traditional Chinese medicine looks into it from that standpoint and going into the different constitutions, the dampness, the dryness. I that resonates with me as you talk about that. I have an acupuncturist, and she's always like checking my pulse, determining if it's wiry and stuff. So it's interesting to hear that similarly your assessment looks into that when you're breaking down the constitution and how to help someone, right? Except from you're taking it from a standpoint of what I guess herbal blend would best suit the needs of what they're dealing with.
Yeah, I would say that herbal blends are probably supportive, but then I'll also look at a lot of times just what someone's eating and what their sleep cycles are like and how they're moving and exercising. So it's a combination. Like the herbal aspect of it is only one part of like the entire um, wellness guide that I would recommend for somebody. Yeah, and then part of that, like as you were saying, like the assessment of like the pulse, I'll we also look at like tongue and face,
Right,
because there's like a lot of like what is on the tongue and it's like a
right,
map to the rest of your body. So like different parts of your tongue correlate to other parts of your body and systems.
right. And how do you work around if you have a client that's already taking, because you mentioned depression and anxiety. Sometimes people are on psychotropic medicine to help balance that, right? How do you work around, someone that's already on existing medication?
Yeah, I definitely have a few clients who are on SSRIs, um, and I try to really be um, very cautious in the approach. And there are definitely herbs, for example, that I would not recommend for someone that's on, an antidepressant. Like, for example, I would not recommend something like St. John's wort because that will just, somehow, you don't want to bring the serotonin levels like in any more imbalance. So I would say that, um, you know, being really cautious with the approach and then trying to maybe um, recommend something that will maybe deal with other energetic issues that they may be having, like if they said again like they're feeling cold, then something to warm them up and get their circulation moving, that are and looking at more gentle herbs for anyone who's on medication.
And you probably also have to determine if the person's allergic to certain things too, right? To make sure that there's no allergic responses to anything that you're administering.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just making sure, it's almost like, herbalists are also like pharmacists where we kind of know like, all right, well, I know that this herb, for example, doesn't really go well with someone who's on blood thinners. Yeah, so we definitely have to be pretty keen on that stuff as well.
And is it only a tea that you I'm laughing because I was gonna say, is it only tea that you push out? Is it only tea that you slang Bernadette? Or do you
Yeah,
also
yeah, yeah.
do you also come up with like other forms of administering your herbs?
Yeah, so I also do I do tinctures. So those are like alcohol based um extractions of herbs. So I'll make plant medicine or I'll get it from like another herbal plant medicine maker, where that process takes a pretty long time. I'd say like 4 weeks or so to be able to extract the constituents from an herb and get their medicinal properties. And then I'll also sometimes recommend different powders of herbal herbs or roots, which can kind of get off the shelf or from other brands. And then there's also for some people who don't like the alcohol tincture, then there's glycerins that we can do, which are basically like vegetable glycerins that extract the herbs as well. So yeah, I would say teas, tinctures, glycerates, and powders are probably the other formats that I recommend.
All right. And then your I guess your cultural stand or not standpoint, but your cultural practice. You mentioned Ayurveda, you mentioned traditional Chinese medicine, you mentioned Western herbalism. Is it a blend of all of these?
Yeah, Western herbalism was primarily like the focus of the schools that I went through. Again, it is pulling a lot from like um, different disciplines or methodologies, I would say. And there's a lot of it is talking about the same thing. It's just saying it in a different way. It's like we were talking about energetics earlier. I mean, that Chinese medicine has their way of explaining that in terms of like elements, and Ayurveda has their way of explaining that as well, in terms of like energy. So yeah, I would say it's just like the same. It's the same concept, just a different way of talking about it.
Right. I guess for I don't know if we've talked too much about Ayurveda on this platform, so maybe if you could kind of explain to our audience what Ayurveda is.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in Ayurveda, but it's really I want to say that Ayurveda is like the science of life. I believe is like how they approach it. But it does take a very, again, holistic approach when it comes to overall wellness. And their Ayurveda is really, they look a lot at food versus herbs. I mean, herbs is definitely one thing, but most of their philosophy is around food as medicine. And you think about like all the different herbs and spices and probiotics with like yogurts and cheeses and things that they have. So their kind of like approach um, to health is like really food as medicine.
Right. And for our viewers and listeners, Ayurveda, the practice of Ayurveda is mainly based in India. So,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. And for members of our community that are looking to book a one-on-one or herbal consultation with you, Bern, how would they do so? You're not, are you actively practicing or is it 2023 where you're going to launch?
No, I'm currently practicing and I'm doing virtual consultations. So you can look on my website at keep it really easy. It's bayareaherbalist.com. And you can book through there. I'm also next year going to start doing some in-person consultations. I'm working with a couple of other local herbalists right now. We're trying to figure out like timing and space. But yeah, you could just go on my website, get on my or reach out to me. I'm at hello at bayareaherbalist.com if you have any questions.
And if you could restate the website one more time, I think it might have cut out for our community that wants to book one-on-one herbal consultations. Can you repeat again the website?
Sure, it's bayareaherbalist.com.
Okay. And do you have any upcoming events, classes, any online or workshops that you'd like to plug?
Yeah, like I mentioned, for I am going to start doing some community work here in San Francisco. So take a look out for that. We're thinking like sometime in February, doing pop-ups and classes. I'm also going to be doing uh, some classes in a local high school too. So that'll be fun just to start teaching high schoolers about different herbs. So
That's
that's
cool.
exciting. Yeah, I love being able to like have um, young people just kind of get attuned to it.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great way to like pass your knowledge down to the next generation and really build their knowledge wealth in this area. This especially where you're at. I've seen so many community gardens. It's cool to like have them tap into it in this way. And
Yeah.
and also being that we have listeners listening in from other regions globally, Bernadette, are there other practitioners that are doing similar work that you'd like to shout out or recommend?
Yeah, I would say, like I mentioned, a lot of people are doing virtual consultations. I am going to be working and will be doing a mentorship under Holly Kalika, Manang Holly Kalika, who has a clinic called Luna Wellness Organization, and she is has worked with. She has a lot of like Maori, like Austronesian knowledge, and I'm really excited about working under her in the next year. So just wanted to give a shout out to Holly Kalika. I think her Instagram is Pinay Mujer.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
so take a look out for
cool.
her.
I love hearing about that, especially because we also have Austronesian roots. I can't wait to see how that partnership unfolds and what that does with your business and your herbs.
Yeah, I'm really excited to just, yeah, and she's also an artist too. So just again, like herbalists take on like so many different hyphenated forms. So should be really interesting to work with.
Nice. You also have a leaf blog on your website, right? Tell us about that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the Leaf blog just talks, goes into depth about, well, goes into depth and in a quick way, goes into different herbs, goes into different ways of, um, self care. So I put something out. I haven't put out anything in the last couple of months, but I should be coming out with something again soon. But yeah, there's some great articles there from again, I mentioned yerba mate to like peppermint. So it's just something simple for readers to get to.
All right. Before we close, we always like to ask our guests, what are your own wellness practices? What do you also do for self care that may be inspirational for other individuals listening? We know that you're a mom of two children, you're a daughter, you're a wife. How do you balance it all?
Yeah, I would say that I try to get into habits to start off my day and to end my day. So the first habit is having like a room temperature water with a pinch of mineral salt and a little bit of lemon or lime. And that's really to just help with hydration, help. I run a little bit dry, so the minerals just help in terms of like water retention. And then the lemon or lime for like to get your digestive juices going. So that's something that I like to do every morning. And then at the end of the day, it is getting magnesium in. So having magnesium with like my cup of water or tea that I'm drinking, where everyone is pretty much depleted of magnesium, which is a essential mineral, and that helps with like heart health, bone health, and it really just also helps you relax and get like a good night's sleep. And then at night, I also like to do abhyanga, which is like self massage. That's Ayurveda based, or that's a practice from Ayurveda. So it's putting oil throughout the body, and then just kind of like getting myself in this relaxed state.
Nice. And as we begin to close, how can our listeners find you if they have additional questions?
How can they find me?
Yeah, so do you have what you mentioned your website earlier? Are there any other? Do you have an email address? You mentioned that
Yeah.
as well, or Instagram, social media handles?
Yeah, so for herbal consultations, I'm at bayareaherbalist.com. You can email me at hello@bayareaherbalist.com. And then my tea brand is inabotanicals.com. So it's INA botanicals.com. And you could find, each pages on INA or on Bay Area Herbalist. You can follow me on Instagram at ina.botanicals.tea. And yeah, I pretty much talk about tea there, and I'll talk more about herbalism on there as well.
All right. Thank you, Bernadette, for talking to our community about your company, Botanicals and Tea. We're so honored to have featured you on our podcast as the first episode of 2023, and as we approach the Lunar New Year. We're excited to witness how your journey continues to unfold and are here to support you as your Pilipinx in Wellness family.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
And to our listeners, look out for our next episode. We'll be featuring Ana Salombides, an energy coach and energy healing practitioner, also based in the Bay Area. This episode will be aired on our Wellness Wednesdays on February 8th. As we close, we'd like to say thank you to our guest speaker, Bernadette Aguirre of Botanicals Tea, our social media strategist, Kathleen Torrio, our designer, Richie Lowleaf, for consent to use your track It Is Within that we played for you all during the break. Our advisors, Alison De La Cruz, Rian de los Reyes, and Safo Teologo. Our community partners, This Filipino American Life, SoCal Filipinos, and Trek Table, and all of our community members for your shares and support. As always, we'll share more about our guest speakers' offerings on our Instagram stories and highlights for permanent access with any of their upcoming events. Be sure to follow us at Pilipinx in Wellness on Instagram, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, and on Twitter at Pilipinx, the letter N, well, followed by the letters N and S. Don't forget to continue to hit the subscribe button on our Pilipinx in Wellness YouTube channel. Thank you always for believing in us. Be well, everyone. Continue to take care of yourselves and each other. Daghang salamat.
Duro gid, nagasalamat.